Long time I haven't done a video in English. I think I might have forgotten this language that I used to speak every day. But I decided to do this because of a topic that actually got me interested lately, and that was the Idaho 4 murders, for which a man named Brian Kohberger was sentenced to 4 life sentences. The reason I want to do this is because everybody's putting out their hypotheses about what is the motive for these crimes. And I think they all got it wrong. Some people say it was sexually motivated. Some other was that some kind of rejection, etc., etc. And I do not feel convinced by those theories or hypotheses of what happened. I do believe he had a motive, and that motive comes out of his personality and how he developed himself in Pennsylvania. And I am not going to go in the details of how his life was as a teenager and whatever. The thing is that he became obsessed with crime. He studied criminology and some psychology, and personally, I believe he thought he was really smart. And his history of watching serial killers led me to know that I don't think that he was admiring those people or anything like that. I think he was studying those people and why they got caught. Because I think he was planning to make the perfect crime. Although I believe that later on in the future, he will become a serial killer if he wasn't caught. But I think that at the moment he had the idea of committing the perfect crime. That's why he studied all of those crimes, and he was so good in his criminology career. And that's why I believe he was going to become a doctor in that area of research. Although in the questionnaire he prepared for research on the motives of criminals, he shows a little bit of his mind by the type of questions he made. He wasn't interested in his question of judging the person who committed the crime. His interest was in knowing how he felt to commit the crime. Or he wasn't interested even in the motive that these people had to commit the crime. He wanted to know the process of how he selected a victim and how he felt after he did the crime, and what were his feelings and the victim's feelings in the moment of committing the crimes and stuff like that. That's why he was interested. Let me not make you wait too much to hear what is my hypothesis on why he did this crime. He chose this place because of the particular location of the site. It was a cul-de-sac. You could go around the other apartment building and get to the parking in the back. No other house in that area had that particular setting that the house where these people lived had. The one next to this house had some kind of a fencing that it would have been difficult for him if he had to run away. This location was perfect. He could go around the apartment building and come back to the small road on the side of the building, and he could park in the back where he could enter the house and where he could observe, because I think he visited that place many, many times and stopped in that parking lot and was observing what's going on in the house. One of the victims, Kaylee, said in a couple of occasions that he saw a person back there, and her dog used to chase that person. So I guess that he was a person who never slept that much. So he spent his nights prowling, and he knew very well he wasn't going to do it in the town that he lived because they might recognize him or whatever. So this close town of Moscow, Idaho, he lived in Pullman, was perfect. And that location was perfect because if he committed a crime, there was only one way the police and emergency services will come, which is King Road. So he would spend time in those little woods and that parking lot behind the house. And the only thing that he could see clearly from that position was the third floor where these two girls lived. So he had this knife that he purchased some months before. Some people say that he purchased it to commit a crime where he lived, but then when he was chosen for the PhD, he changed and found that this location far away from Pennsylvania was safer. So he observed these people, knew the people who lived there. He spent countless time in that parking lot. There is phone records that he visited that place many, many times before. So he was observing and he decided these are the people that are commit the crime. And he chose whatever girl who was in the third floor. I don't think he knew them before. I think that he chose the location first, and then he chose the girl. United States National really like to go into the personal things because they love the personal story about a victim or whatever. A story that he was infatuated with one of them, or he got rejected for one of them, and he was an incel and he wanted to assert revenge on them or whatever. That comes out of that feeling. But most killers, if they don't have no relationship with the victims, they don't do their crimes because of that. It's either chance or is either opportunity. And since he had no connection with these people, I am sure that the reason it was that place is because of the location and how easy it was to stalk the people in there and observe whatever they were doing. He was a night owl, a person who doesn't sleep at night, and he drove around the place many, many times. He felt secure when observing these people there. And he was smart. He is a smart person. Not as smart as he thought, but he's a smart. He thought that he was a genius and he was never going to be caught. But, circumstances, when you're committing a crime, changes, and they change fast, and things could go the other way around than you think. So he chose it was that, the third floor there. They leave this door open. He observed that many times. The two beautiful girls living. He could choose any of them. At least I think that he will choose the one without the dog, which was Maddie Morgan. I don't think, like some people think, that he was Kylie Gonzalez. There are reasons that it could have been Kylie Gonzalez because the dog barked. Maybe because he opened the door, Kylie Gonzalez's apartment door first. That was the apartment who would be facing, he observing a platform, where he used to stand. So it could be, there are reasons that could be Kylie Gonzalez. When he went and he only found the dog there, he closed the door and then he went to the other room where the two were sleeping. He killed Maddie Morgan first. That was the obstacle of his thing. He wanted to be alone with her in her room, but now they got into, well, I killed Maddie Morgan. And then Kylie woke up and fought. And that's why she got so many injuries. And that's why, out of anger, because she destroyed his opportunity to enjoy her. And I don't think he was going to rape her. He was too smart, and raping implies leaving a lot of evidence. The reason why he was dressed up all black, he wasn't going to take off his clothes to have sex with these ladies. He went there to kill and enjoy the killing and commit the perfect crime. Kylie Gonzalez fought very well, but at the end she ended up losing her life at the hand of Brian Kohberger. This is when everything went south. It started going south when he couldn't find Kylie Gonzalez there. If that is the target that he wanted, I think that it was her. So he had to kill Maggie first so he can enjoy his time with Kylie. And Maddie was the one closer to the door. Kylie was sleeping close to the wall. Something that he knew was that there was a DoorDash delivery earlier. because he was in the area there. So he knew there was a delivery, so he waited maybe 25 minutes. So the person who ordered ate it and went to sleep. But Sana Conoodle was awake, and I think she went upstairs to find out what was happening, and maybe she called from the third floor hallway to Kylie and Maggie what's happening. The door was open, and when this guy saw, well, he said, I have to kill her, and then he go after her. He attacked her in the hall of the second floor, but she was able, even injured, to get to her room. And then he finished her there. When he finished her there, maybe her boyfriend moved or whatever, and he noticed, oh, there is somebody else here, I'm going to kill him. Then he killed him. Killing with a knife is not something that you do easily. It's very difficult. And when people fight back, it is very tiring. So he fought with Kylie, and now he fought with Sina in the second floor. Then when he killed her boyfriend, he sat down and to rest maybe for a couple of minutes. And Dylan, the girl that lived in the second floor, the other girl that lived in the second floor who was hearing all of this commotion, opened the door when he was coming out to leave. And he was on a rush because his perfect planification has gone awry. Nothing that he has planned has happened, so he had to leave in a hurry. He couldn't take time upstairs, and downstairs he had to fight too much too. He was tired, whether he saw Dylan or not. I think he saw her, but he know that he was on the cul-de-sac, that he needed to get out there. There was only one way to get in and get out. So if this girl who saw him called the police, he couldn't lose a minute or two killing her. He had to get out of there fast. That's why he came and left in that night many times, 3 or 4 occasions, and it was slow. And when he was leaving at high speed, because he knew that the person that was there was going to call, or he thought was going to call police, and he didn't have time to kill her. So I think that even if he has seen her, he decided, I'm not going to spend 1 second more in this place, I'm going to leave. But if he didn't see her, well, he didn't see her. But I do believe that he saw her, and he decided, no more killing for tonight. If this person is awake, he's going to fight, and I am really tired. As I told you, killing with a knife is a really tiring business. So he left, got into his car, and left at high speed. And he took a roundabout way to get back to his apartment. And he stopped in some place in the middle to get rid of the evidence, his clothes, and knife, and whatever. And that's where I think he found out that he left the sheath of the knife. And I think he started panicking. That's why when he got home, somewhere around 5:30 in the morning, I guess he showered and cleaned his car or whatever. But then immediately after he did that, he went back to the place. He wanted to know if he could get inside there and retrieve his sheath. He was panicking. Whatever he saw, I guess he didn't see nothing in the house, but something else he was seeing around the parking or people walking or whatever, that he think, too risky, I'm not going to do this. But the police is not here. They haven't found anything yet. But I'm not going to get out of the car and get back. He knew immediately that he has to leave the sheath. But he has planned this so much. He thought that he has cleaned the sheath and knife thoroughly. He think, well, they will know that it's this kind of knife. But I don't think they will be able to connect it to me. I use a gift card to buy it in Amazon, so I don't think they will be able to trace it to me, which was wrong because the thief had a code that they could trace who purchased that knife. And whatever he cleaned, he didn't clean the thing on the top that hold the knife, where you have to push, and there was contact DNA there, his DNA. So he's screwed. I really think that if everything would have gone as he planned and he killed Kylie in her room, he wouldn't have left the sheath there. He would have time to clean, collect, and whatever, and leave. Everything went differently for him. Although he studied very well what he had to do, they couldn't find any trace on his phone of his searches or whatever, the thing that he didn't want you to find. So he had some kind of software to delete all his. He did that job pretty well. I guess that the electronic trace that he left was from his computer, not his phone. In the phone, they didn't find much. First, I want to say why the two survivors didn't call the police immediately. So the question of the hour for many months was why this girl in the second floor and the one in the first floor didn't call the police immediately after watching this person dressed in black with a baklava in his head and something in his hand. They didn't call the police immediately. I really think if you see the video of them interacting or whatever, that was a house party practically. You can see there was always a party or whatever. And after they liberated all the information, they found drugs in Sana's room. There was a snorting paraphernalia and there was some kind of powder there. So in a frat house, in the house when people stone, there is a law, they agree, don't call the police when people is drunk or whatever, because they might find drugs and you're going to ruin their lives. I am sure because all of them were out that night. When they got back, they were all awake, around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, that Dylan knew that she had drugs, that they were consuming drugs and whatever. So they wouldn't call the police. They would wait that the drunkenness gone away or whatever. And that I think there is something that usually, noises and stepping on the wood and whatever was something that occurred pretty common in that house. They were young and they have visitors like Sana, who has her boyfriend that night. And the last thing, as on the mind of a teenager or a young person on the campus, is that the people they are living with are going to get killed. Not even, he knew Kylie and Maggie were together, and Sana was with her boyfriend. She was alone, but the others not. So it wouldn't pass through the mind of these people that they were being killed at all. And you can see in the text that she's afraid because it was a guy, something weird, but without saying, they knew, either drugs or whatever, or something is happening, but I don't get involved in that shit. I am alone and I just want to go. That's why the other girl invited, come downstairs and we sleep together. Leave those two couple of people doing whatever they're doing up there and don't get involved with that. And that's why they didn't call the police. So the next day when they woke up and they hadn't get any communication with these people, then they got afraid. Proof that she felt vulnerable because she was alone is that she called a friend, a male friend, to come to the house so they can go and check what was going on with her friends. They waited and they arrived, and that's when they found out, and then they make the phone call. Even when there wasn't a phone call, this girl didn't know what happened because the guy went alone, and when he saw what was happening, he didn't tell them. He protected them. He didn't tell them, they killed them. No, he said, get out of the house and call the police. Because he saw what was in that room, that those two persons were dead. And he didn't say anything. So I don't blame these people for not calling immediately when she saw this person. I don't blame them. She knew that if the police come, she was going to put in trouble their friends. She was drunk and the other was drunk. And she knew that there were drugs there. And the report of the police, in the evidence they picked up these. They didn't say what kind of drug it was, but it was some kind of a blue powder, and there was some kind of a $2 bill roll-up. So they were snorting something, and when that thing happened in a house full of young people, everybody knew what was going on. So I think that was the reason she didn't call the police immediately. Either they spoke before that, saying don't call the police, or when you see drunk, somebody pass out drunk or whatever, wait for them to wake up or whatever. I think they have that kind of agreement amongst themselves, and that's why she didn't call. She won't say it publicly that was the reason, but I think that was the reason she didn't call. Okay, so what were Brian Kohberger's mistake? Well, the first things that happened is it wasn't his mistake. It was that random thing happens that screwed up his plan, and he ended up killing more people than he planned. I think that he went there to kill one person, and when he didn't find that person where she was supposed to be, he killed the other to get away with that. That's why Maggie was killed sleeping. I don't think she even noticed that she went dead, and that's why he fought for so long with Kylie. The two other victims were because he didn't want to leave witness, and Sana saw him committing the crime. She caught him in flagranti, so he has to kill them. Panicking, he left in a rush and basically forgot evidence. The other mistake he made, and I don't know how he didn't knew that, because he was a criminology candidate for PhD. He had to know that there are cameras in the U.S. There are cameras everywhere. I live in a small country in the Caribbean, and we have camera in almost every intersection. They're being monitored 24/7. The government. So when somebody commits a crime here, they can follow, and we have crimes that they have follow the criminals. They went to this place. For instance, I remember there was a bank heist, a small bank in a big avenue, and they were able to show video of them arriving at the place, leaving the place, going somewhere where they left people out of the car in two places, and they have also video of those two people getting on top of motorcycles and going to somewhere. So by the end of the day, they knew where the five men involved in that heist were. And this is a third world country, and that's the government and police and all of that. But in the U.S., it's not only the government or the police or the city. It's private persons. Everybody has a ring cam or some kind of camera running everywhere. So you're driving a white car. If it is a black at night, it's difficult to get the color or whatever, but you're driving a white car. And an Elantra, which is pretty easy to identify. They will find out. The other mistake he made, it was in the stalking chapter of his crime. He used his phone. He never turned it off. He only turned it off the night of the crime. And that was stupid. Even he kept the phone with him. So he turned it off sometime later. If he was really smart, he would have left the phone in his house every time he was going to do that. But he let it on, so they have the history of him going from Pullman to Moscow and going to that area. The night of the crime, he turned it off sometime before and then turned it on sometime after. That was idiotic because we already have your history. It doesn't depend on you cleaning your phone. It is registered with the telephones company towers. So he knew that your digital footprint will be there, and he didn't take precautions to it. The only thing that he did with his digital footprint was clean his phone data. And he did a good job because they couldn't find much relating to the crime in the telephone. They find a lot of pages or whatever, but related to the crime, the only thing that was there was the picture he took an hour after the crime. He failed in that. He failed in leaving the sheath. That's true. That the first mistake, it wasn't up to him. It just happened that these girls were sleeping together, and then the Sana was awakened and went upstairs. The second was a major mistake when he left the sheath. I guess that he didn't force himself to go and get it because he thought that he has to make a pretty good cleaning job. But there was a contact DNA on top of the sheath, so he was screwed. And he cleaned everything. They didn't find any fiber in the car, anything. He put that car spotless. They didn't find any evidence of this crime in the car. He was covered completely in his body, gloves, and so there was no hair or anything that he left in the crime scene either. He thought pretty well for this crime. Providence had another future for him, and some random things happened that make him screw his plan. And when he left the place, he turned on his phone again. And that was another mistake, because once he turned on the phone, they were able to find out that he stopped for 10 minutes. Stopped for 10 minutes doing what? Discarding evidence, his clothes, the knife, etc., etc. And that he took that roundabout way far away from Moscow to the south, and then went back again to Pullman. If he was really smart, he wouldn't have turned on that telephone so close to the crime scene after he committed the crime. So he wasn't that smart. And pretty soon, when he heard that they were looking for his car and whatever, he knew that, shit, they got me on video everywhere. They had the route, they had the times had passed, and he knew he has passed the crime scene before he committed the crime, like 4 times. So they got a pretty good look at his car. So what does he do? Well, he went and registered his car in motor vehicle in the Washington state. Got new registration plates. So now he's going to have one in front and one in the back. And that was the only thing that they will see differently in his car and the car in the video. He was panicking at that time. And that's why he decided, instead of going back by plane to his house, he said, I have to take this car far away from here. I guess that if he hadn't identified by DNA, before he went back to that place, he was going to sell that car, get rid of that car. So he panicked, and he told his father, come, let's go on a cross-country drive or whatever, and let's get the hell out of Dodge with the car. It would have been easier and cheaper to just buy a plane ticket from Washington to Pennsylvania. He went driving because he had to take that car out of it. He didn't have any evidence. That's why he not only cleaned it in Pullman, but he also cleaned it in his house. There wasn't anything in the car. The police report said so. They couldn't find nothing related to the crime in the car. He didn't want that car to be found. That's why he took the car back to Pennsylvania. He drove 2,500 miles across the whole continental United States to get that evidence out of Washington state. But he was cooked, like they say in the internet now, because they had his DNA. And now it's not that they couldn't find any knives and whatever. So I don't have no crime. Nobody's going to find me. But we now have genealogy databases. So the police used that immediately. And they found a relative close to him. And they found out the person who lived in Washington from this family in Pennsylvania is this guy. And they started to do surveillance on him and his house. And they got the garbage. And in the garbage, they found DNA, and it resulted to be his father DNA. So now they had him. Soon they found probable cause. They asked for a judge for a warrant. And the judge gave the warrant, and they went and swatted his house and got him arrested, which I think it would have been very traumatic for his father, his mother, and his other family. Well, he was hated by his family, not his father and his mother, but the children or whatever, because he said it himself that he was an asshole to his family. So, but they knew when they got him, they knew that he had the potential to do what he was accused of. So those were his mistakes, how he got caught. There was not much evidence to get after that because they couldn't get any evidence from the car, from his cell phones and whatever. There was not much to get out of his house. That's it. Why he pleaded guilty? Because of the DNA. If there wasn't DNA, he was going to go to the trial. And I think that he had enough reasonable doubts to be considered not guilty. and maybe he would have been the charges if it wasn't because of DNA. But if it wasn't because of DNA, they wouldn't have found him fast. Maybe for the car, they would have be eliminating one by one, and maybe some months later on, instead of 1 month, maybe some 3-4 months later on, they would interview and whatever, and they will see his bushy eyebrows and his height and whatever, and they will start suspecting him and start looking to him more in detail. It would have happened then later on that he might have been charged. But without DNA, it would have been very difficult to prove that he killed these 4 kids. But they had DNA, they had a sheath, they had the proof that he purchased that particular sheath with a knife inside. They couldn't get that. They couldn't get the knife, never, or his clothes, or whatever, or his shoes that he was wearing. Nothing, but they got the sheath, and that sheath they found out that was purchased in Amazon, and he used a gift card, and that card they follow the trace until they put that card in his hand, and that's it. It's crude. So that sheath is crucial because it not only put him there, but he also established a connection between the murder weapon and himself. So he would eventually got caught. Maybe if they didn't caught him past, let's say 6 months down the road, I'm sure he was going to kill again. That he was going to feel so empowered in his belief that he was very smart and that he committed the perfect crime, that he will continue his crimes, and in the future he was going to be a serial killer for sure. I'm sure of that. But they caught him, and that's it. So with that evidence against him, there wasn't much to do. And like those people, narcissistic, that think that they're smart and whatever, they don't want to die, they're a coward. So they say, I don't want to be sentenced to death. And he knew that with that DNA, he was going to be sentenced to death. So these smart people, these people who think they are very smart, say, as long as I have life, I have chance to change this sentence or get out of the system with a technicality or whatever. I have all the time in the world. People in the prison system, unless they are killed by other prisoners, they get to live 90 years old. So he needed to preserve his life. And that's why they say the only way that you preserve your life is if you go to trial and you get convicted, you're going to get capital punishment, for sure. So he knew that, to say, well, I don't want to go to trial. All the way around is offer the prosecutor to say a plea deal. And he went with it because he knew he got caught. He knew with that DNA, there was no way that he's going to get out of that crime scot-free. There's no way. So I accept. And when he did that plea, the way he said yes to the judge when he was being asked or whatever, you can see that he has no empathy for what he has done. He doesn't even register how grave and heinous crime he has committed. It was like another day. Yes. His life in jail it's not gonna be different on how he lived outside because he was a loner. Some people call him incel or whatever. But I really think that he was some kind of incel because he showed misogynistic traits when dealing with female students at the university. That's why they'll fire him. So basically in jail, what is going to happen? Well, he has the history using knife, which is not everybody has the guts to kill somebody with a knife. So he was going to be recruited by some Aryan nation or white extremists in jail, one of those gangs, for sure. Even if he had a reservation, he was going to accept it because he was going to be protected that way. I'm sure that he is going to get into one of those gangs to assure for his security, and he was going to get some tattoos and whatever, and white supremacist. Because in jail, that capacity to kill people, and he killed 4 using a knife, is invaluable. This guy is not afraid to stab somebody. And in jail, the only weapon that you can get is knives. So for a white supremacist group, that's the only value he has. So if you think that he is going to be killed in federal prison, whatever, I doubt it. He will find a way to survive there, live his life. Why the prosecutor's office accepted the plea deal? Well, because they didn't have an open-close case. The only thing they had was DNA. And he only needed one juror who believed in whatever bullshit he was going to present on trial. He only needed one. And he could have walked out of that. The prosecutor felt that they had it in their pocket, that conviction. What they didn't have quite sure is the death penalty. He was going to show all his history, that he was abused, he was bullied, he had all these conditions, autistic, has the snow vision syndrome, etc., all of that. And there was a big possibility that he could beat the death penalty. So accepting the plea now, they wasn't going to lose much. They got him for sure. It wasn't going to be no appeal, and they wouldn't put the families of the victim through the ordeal going to a trial, because in the trial they're going to show the pictures of the dead relatives with their faces destroyed and pictures of each one of the injury and whatever. It doesn't matter if the picture was close to the genitals or whatever, they was going to show. And no father want to see that from the daughters. So I guess that the decision by the prosecutor to accept the plea deal was a good decision. He's not going to see the light of day, never in his life. It doesn't matter what technicality. There are very, 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 very few people who got their sentences commuted. And usually those few who get it because they got DNA who prove that they were not there when the crime happened, they usually get free 20, 30 years after the crime. This guy is going to be for the long haul there. There's no way he's going to get out of there. If I were a prosecution, I would have taken the deal every day of the week, twice on Sundays. And that's it. He got sentenced. The victims did their impact statement, very powerful impact statement, particularly the sister of Kylie Gonzalez. That was excellent. And Brian Kohberger went into history, and we will only hear from them when from time to time people make a documentary here on YouTube or one news channel or whatever. And that is my 2 cents. I wanted to leave this opinion on this case because I do not agree with any of the theories or hypotheses or opinions that are being put after this guy has been sentenced. The motive that he did this was his ego, that he was smart and he was a genius on criminology and that he was commit a perfect crime that nobody will be able to trace back to him. That's why he committed that. The reason why he chose those victims wasn't because of the victims. It was because of the location that they were living. A cul-de-sac that only have one entrance, one exit, with a parking lot in the back with some wooded area in the back that he could stand up and stalk or watch or observe the victims. And why was the 3rd floor? Because that was the floor, that was the only floor that you could see in detail from that wooded area. That and the entrance, and why he chose the kitchen to enter was because he knew that that door was left constantly open. There was evidence that somebody tried to pry one of the entry doors by removing the screws of the joints or whatever. So I think that he went to that place so many times and he tried to open and whatever. So he found the best way to get in and to get out quickly. Get in, coming from the wooded area, you didn't have to get to the parking lot. No cameras. He would have observed that there were no cameras pointing to the side. In the building that was behind, there wasn't no camera pointing to that side. So he would have been in complete privacy to observe to his content. So he knew that was the point of entry, the kitchen. He knew that to get to the second floor after the kitchen, he just have to turn right, take the stairs, and he was there. So he was going to come back the same way and leave. That was it. And I think that he was going to kill one person, one only. It could have been Maggie or Kylie, one of them. But I think there is more evidence that it was Kylie than Maggie, because I think that the way they were killed, Maggie was killed very quickly, and there wasn't no defense wounds, and there was no rage. But Kylie was disfigured and had more than 20 stab wounds and a lot of defensive wounds and all of that. Could be that he was going to go to Maggie and he found Kylie, or he also has good reasons to believe that it was Kylie, that he went to her room and he found the dog. That's why the dog barked. And then he checked the other room where Maddie, and then he saw the two of them. So he decided, sleeping, so he decided, let me kill Maggie first to get rid of the thing, and then I'm going to deal with my target, which was Kylie. Could be either one of them. Sina and her boyfriend were collateral. Sina was awake because he was eating and doing drugs and whatever. And she went upstairs because of the noise. And so Brian Kohberger finishing Kylie. So he went after her. And he killed her. She started killing her in the hallway. And when he got to the room, he finished her, and then he saw her boyfriend that was passed out. I don't think him and Maggie, I don't think they even knew they were being killed. He just died in the same way he was sleeping, right there. And then he left. So that's my theory, and I wanted to put AI there. And so I'm sorry, I apologize for my terrible accent, my English. I used to speak English very well with good pronunciation and all of that because I live in English-speaking countries for 20 plus years. I haven't used my English in the last 10, 12 years. And even though I only watch English-speaking content, I never use it because everybody here speaks Spanish, and I have lost the ability to pronounce it well and remember the good words and whatever. So I apologize for that, but I hope you appreciate my opinion. Thank you for your attention.